The phone rang. My son's voice, Richard's, said, "Mom, don't come this year. Dinner's just for Carla's family."
Christmas Eve was drawing near. My son's voice, Richard's, cut through my chest like a knife. Those words sent a chill down my spine. 69 years of life, 42 years raising that boy. And this is how he treats me, as if I were some old trinket in the way. "What do you mean by only Carla's family?" I asked, though in my heart I already knew the answer. My daughter-in-law, Carla, had been planning this for months. I'd seen her whisper in Richard's ear at family gatherings, tossing me those condescending looks she thought I wouldn't notice. "Oh, Mom, Carla wants to do something special for Gabriel." Richard said. Gabriel is my 8-year-old grandson, the one who still runs to throw his arms around my neck and shout, "Grandma!" every time he sees me, the one who begs me for bedtime stories. My heart shattered into little pieces, and yet, strangely, a smile curved on my lips. "That's fine, sweetheart," I answered, surprising even myself with how gentle I sounded. Richard was silent for a few seconds, maybe waiting for tears and pleading. "Really, Mom? You're not upset?" His voice held confusion, almost a hint of disappointment. "No, honey, enjoy yourselves." I ended the call with a calm I hadn't felt in a long time. What Richard didn't know, what no one in the family knew, was that 3 days earlier I had signed the contract to buy a beachfront mansion worth $15 million in Palm Beach, Florida, a house I'd quietly had my eye on for months, waiting for the right moment. In their eyes, I was the poor, dependent grandma living in a small apartment. Meanwhile, I was managing investments they couldn't begin to imagine. For years I swallowed my pride, enduring Carla's barbed family's need, their own space, bearing the pitying looks when I showed up to parties in that moss-green dress, the one I'd worn 3 years in a row. I smiled as they seated me at the end of the table. Far from the important conversations, I pretended not to hear Carla on the phone with her friends. She's too old for that sort of thing. But that day, something in me shifted. Maybe it was the chill in Richard's voice, or the shock of realizing my own son chose to humiliate his mother over the phone instead of speaking to me face to face. Or perhaps it was simply time I stopped being the silent victim in my own family. That evening, as I made coffee and looked at the gold key ring to the new mansion lying on the table, I knew what I had to do. The house has 8 ensuite bedrooms, an infinity pool facing the ocean, and a great room big enough to host 50 people. High ceilings with exposed beams, floor-to-ceiling windows opening onto a private beach, a perfectly manicured garden. Everything stood in stark contrast to the image my family had assigned me. While they were planning an intimate dinner, I would prepare the most spectacular Christmas they had ever seen. That night in bed, I thought about every humiliation I'd swallowed. The times Carla forgot to invite me to Gabriel's birthdays. The time Richard handed me grocery money with a patronizing smile, like pocket money to a child. The family photos that deliberately left me out because that's enough people. Small cruelties, drop by drop, turning into poison over the years. But now, I had the right to rewrite the story. And best of all, they wouldn't suspect a thing until it was too late. Weak Grandma Margaret died with that phone call. From the ashes, I would rise transformed. The next morning, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. Drop by Richard and Carla's unannounced. I needed to look them in the eye and hear, with my own ears, their excuse for cutting me out of Christmas dinner. I rang the bell at their 2-story house in a gated community, the house I had helped pay for when Richard lost his job 5 years ago. Carla opened the door with barely concealed annoyance. "Mrs. Margaret, we didn't know you were coming." Her voice sounded like she'd just stepped in something dirty. She didn't invite me in right away, blocking the doorway as if I were a door-to-door peddler at the wrong hour. "Hello, Carla. I came to see Gabriel and, while I'm here, to talk about the Christmas plans." She finally shifted aside to let me in, but not before I caught the "be smart" glance she shot Richard. He came out to the living room looking awkward. "Mom, I already told you on the phone. We want to do things differently this year." He couldn't meet my eyes as he spoke. Gabriel ran out of his room, beaming, "Grandma." But before he could reach me, Carla set a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Gabriel, go back to your room and do your homework. The adults are talking." My grandson's smile went out like a light. I sat on the sofa I'd gifted them last year and watched Carla sit opposite me, wearing the haughty pose she'd perfected over the years. "I hope you understand this isn't personal," she poured on the syrup. "My family has very particular Christmas traditions." Every word dripped with superiority. "What tradition is so special that I can't be there?" I asked, keeping my voice even that clearly made her falter. Richard shifted on the couch, uncomfortable. "Mom, Carla's family is more refined. They have a formal dinner. There are certain rituals." Carla flashed the fake smile I've learned to despise. "That's right. My parents are from France. They have their own standards. Dinner is served with fine china and crystal, with foie gras and imported caviar." Her eyes swept me from head to toe, as if inspecting whether my moss-green dress met her quality control. "I see," I said, my cheeks burning with shame. "And specifically, what about me is not refined enough?" The question hung in the air like a bomb. Richard cleared his throat. "That's not it. It's just, you're not used to that kind of atmosphere." Right then, Gabriel crept out again, but Carla was quicker. "Didn't you hear me? Go to your room now." Her voice carried that cold authority she uses to remind everyone who runs the house. My grandson looked back at me, eyes apologetic, then disappeared. Carla leaned forward, eyes glinting with satisfaction. "What bothers me is how you always try to be the center of attention at family dinners, telling stories from the past, wanting everyone to focus on you. My parents aren't used to that." Her words felt like a slap. Richard stared at the floor, too spineless to defend his mother. Carla continued, emboldened by my silence. "Also, the gifts you buy for Gabriel are always cheap. Last year, that plastic toy broke after 2 days. My parents gave him a trip to Disney World. Do you see the difference?" "Carla, come on!" Richard tried to interject, but she cut him off with a look. "No, it's time to be honest. Mrs. Margaret, it's not that we don't like you, it's just that you no longer fit our lifestyle. The coupons, the supermarket sales, that's not what we want guests to hear about. My parents will think we lack class, especially if you wear those thrift store dresses again." Her eyes landed on my dress, full of contempt. Richard finally spoke up, only to back her up. "Mom, Carla's right. Maybe this year we each celebrate in our own way. You stay home, turn on the TV, relax, no pressure of a formal dinner." That betrayal felt like someone reached in and tore my heart out. The son I raised alone after his father left now sitting there, suggesting I spend Christmas by myself while they enjoy caviar and foie gras. Carla added one more jab. "Also, you tend to eat a bit too much at parties. My parents value table manners. We don't want any awkward moments." In that instant, something in me snapped for good. It wasn't just being excluded, it was their deliberate cruelty, the pleasure they took in shaming me. I rose very slowly, feeling every fiber of my body changing shape. "I understand perfectly," I said in a voice that sounded eerily calm. "Good. I'm glad you understand," Carla exhaled. "I knew you'd be reasonable. In the end, everyone wants what's best for the family." Her smile beamed as if she'd solved a hard problem. I stepped toward the door and could still hear Gabriel sniffling in his room. Richard walked me out, trying to look remorseful. "Mom, please understand, nothing personal." Those stock phrases were hollow. "Of course, sweetheart, nothing personal at all," I echoed, savoring the bitterness. They had no idea things were about to become very personal. In the parking area, the mansion's key ring in my coat pocket felt heavy, like a promise of justice. That night, alone in my small apartment, I picked up the phone and started calling. It was time to prepare the most radiant Christmas my family had ever witnessed, and this time, only Richard and Carla would be crossed off the guest list. That night, after the humiliation in their home, I sat down and opened the safe hidden behind my wardrobe, ready for the opening act of the story I would write myself. Inside the safe was everything my family had never seen: investment certificates, portfolio statements, property deeds. For 15 years since my husband died, I'd played the role of the poor, dependent widow. But the truth was entirely different. My husband Robert was wiser than anyone knew. Before he passed, he quietly invested in tech stocks that are now worth a fortune. Not only that, He bought land in places that seemed insignificant at the time, which later became multi-million-dollar developments. When he left this world, he left me not only love, but an initial nest egg of about $5 million, quietly multiplying year after year. Why did I keep it secret? At first, because of the grief. I didn't want to touch anything after losing the love of my life. Then, as I began to see the true faces of certain people in the family, I decided to stand back and watch, who loved me for who I am, not for what I have. And now, after all these years of being looked down on, I have every answer I need. The $15 million beachfront mansion in Palm Beach was only the beginning. I owned properties in 3 different states, a portfolio that generated more money than I could spend, and connections my family couldn't imagine. While Carla bragged about her high society parents, I quietly dined with real estate tycoons and philanthropists. No one in the family had a clue. The next day, I got to work. First was calling my sister, Olivia. She lives in another state and hasn't come home for 2 years because of a conflict with Carla. "Olivia, it's Margaret. Do you have Christmas plans?" Her voice lit up. "I didn't expect your call. Actually, I was planning to spend it alone after what Carla did last year." "Forget that," I cut in. "I'm inviting you to my new home this Christmas. A celebration like no other." I read off the mansion's address. I could hear the amazement in her voice. "Are you sure you wrote that right? It sounds like the priciest stretch of beachfront." "That's exactly where it is. Come, and I'll tell you everything. Just bring a truly elegant outfit and a spirit ready to celebrate." Then I called my cousin Maurice, who has always been like an older brother to me, though Richard and Carla look down on him because he's a mechanic. "Maurice, how about we make this Christmas different?" Last year, Carla humiliated him by hinting he should wash his hands before touching anything in the living room. "Are you okay?" Richard just called saying Christmas dinner was canceled. Ah, so Richard even used my name to cancel the invitation. How amusing. "I'm better than ever. I want you to bring the whole family to my Christmas party. I have a surprise for everyone that night." I gave him details. On the other end, he still sounded unsure. "Margaret, this address. Celebrities live there. Trust me. Dress sharp and get ready for the best Christmas of your life." I called every aunt and uncle, every cousin, every close family friend, the very people Richard and Carla had gradually edged out of gatherings for being insufficiently refined for their new style. The guest list climbed to 35 people, and it still wasn't done. In the days that followed, I showed up in circles my family knew nothing about. I contacted my best friend Evelyn, the director of a multi-million-dollar charity fund. "Evelyn, want to spend Christmas at my place? I want to introduce you to my family." Evelyn already knew my situation and had offered help many times, but I preferred to handle it myself. "Fantastic, your family will finally learn about your contributions to the fund." I laughed softly. "Let's just say they're about to learn a lot about me." I also invited Leonard, my financial advisor, who played a major role in growing my assets. "Leonard, I want you to meet my son Richard at Christmas dinner. Are you finally going to talk about the portfolio?" he asked, curious. "Something like that. It's time he knows who his mother really is." I also reached out to Iris, the interior designer, who had turned the mansion into a magazine-worthy Christmas castle. "Iris, I want you to document the entire event. Photos, video, every detail." Meanwhile, I kept my usual routine. Grocery shopping with coupons, wearing simple dresses, staying in my small apartment. But every evening, I drove to the mansion to oversee preparations. The garden was lit with thousands of warm golden bulbs reflecting off the infinity pool. The oceanfront veranda was draped with fresh wreaths. The flowers alone cost more than a month of Carla's clothing budget. That week, Richard called me twice, perhaps out of late-blooming guilt. "Mom, are you okay? You sounded so calm the other day." There was a note of worry in his voice I hadn't heard in a long time. "I'm wonderful, sweetheart. Actually better than ever. Enjoy your very refined European dinner. Mom, if you want, you can come over for dessert. I know Carla said some harsh things, but don't worry about me, Richard." I gently cut in. "I'm going to have a wonderful Christmas, probably the best of my life." He was clearly confused. "Are you going to someone's house?" I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Enjoy your caviar and foie gras. I'll be exactly where I need to be. 3 days before Christmas, Carla called too. Mrs. Margaret, I hope you won't take the other day to heart. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood this is best for all. Her voice dripped with syrupy fake sweetness. Not at all, Carla. In fact, thank you for opening my eyes. I heard her exhale in relief. Wonderful. I knew you'd be mature. After all, family comes first, right? Absolutely. Family is the most important thing, I echoed, thinking of the 35 guests who'd confirmed for my celebration. On Christmas Eve, I was at the mansion for the final check when Maurice arrived early to help. His reaction was exactly as I pictured. Frozen at the gate, mouth agape at the glowing marble fountain, the perfectly manicured garden, and the towering house beneath the stars. "Whose place is this?" he asked as we walked the stone path. "Mine, Maurice. Entirely mine." He stopped in his tracks. "Yours? How is that possible?" "It's a long story. Let's say I've kept a few secrets." When we stepped into the great room, ceilings about 20 feet high, a marble fireplace flickering warm, windows looking straight out onto the private beach, Maurice dropped onto the Italian leather sofa. "Margaret, I don't understand anything anymore. Does Richard know about this?" "He doesn't know a thing. And tomorrow night, when he sees the photos of our party online, he'll realize he's made the biggest mistake of his life." I handed him my phone to show the guest list. His eyes widened. "The whole extended family will be here except Richard, Carla, and Gabriel." Understanding slowly spread across his face. "You're right. This is exactly what they deserve." "Exactly, Maurice." Christmas morning, I woke up in the small apartment one last time. I tried to keep my habits to the very end, but my heart raced with a feeling I hadn't had in decades. Around mid-morning, Richard called with the forced cheer of someone ashamed. "Merry Christmas, Mom. How are you doing?" "Wonderful, sweetheart. I'm getting ready for a memorable celebration." I wasn't lying. "Oh, are you going to Aunt Olivia's?" There was a hint of relief, as if that cleared his conscience. "Something like that. Olivia will be with me, and many very special people besides." I heard Carla's voice in the background, probably puzzled at how cheerful I sounded. Richard couldn't resist boasting, "Mom, we're having a lovely day too. Carla's parents brought French champagne, $500 a bottle. Sounds nice, Richard. Enjoy. As for me?" This time Carla grabbed the phone. "What will you be doing, ma'am?" "I'll be welcoming family, the ones who truly value me at my home, young lady." The silence that followed was delicious. "Your home? You mean the apartment?" "I mean exactly what I say, Carla, at my home." I hung up, feeling a satisfaction I hadn't known in years. I knew that call would make them restless, but they couldn't begin to imagine what was coming. At noon, I headed to the mansion to handle the final touches. Chef Philip's team was already at work in the gourmet kitchen, preparing a menu that would turn Carla's foie gras into fast food: fresh lobster, Norwegian salmon, top-tier beluga caviar, and a French chef who had worked at a Michelin-starred restaurant. The aroma wafting from the kitchen, pure heaven. Iris exceeded my expectations with the decor. The main living room looked like it stepped out of a Christmas fairy tale, a tree about 13 feet tall glittering with Austrian crystal. The dining table set with fine china, crystal stemware, and white orchid arrangements that cost more than Richard's monthly salary. Early in the afternoon, guests began to arrive. The first was Olivia by taxi. Her face, as the car stopped at the gate, priceless. She stood on the curb for a few minutes, staring at the estate like a mirage. "Margaret, please tell me you're not involved in anything risky," were her first words when I opened the door. "On the contrary, dear, for the first time in years, I'm exactly where I belong." I linked arms with Olivia and gave her a tour of the mansion. Each room drew another gasp. "How is this possible? Since when have you had this much money?" We sat on the oceanfront veranda with 2 glasses of real champagne, not the imitation Carla was probably pouring. "Do you remember when Robert died 15 years ago?" She nodded. "It turns out my husband was better with money than any of us realized." I told her everything, the secret investments, The pieces of land that once seemed obscure now turned into multi-million-dollar projects, the stocks that multiplied 100-fold. Why did you never say anything? Olivia was still stunned. Because I wanted to know who loved me for who I am, not for my wallet. And the results say a lot. Half an hour later, Maurice arrived with the whole family, his wife, 3 kids, and even his mother-in-law. Their reactions mirrored Olivia's, just multiplied by 6. His kids, ranging from 15 to 22 years old, rushed into the garden for selfies. "Aunt Margaret, it looks like a princess's palace," the youngest daughter said. "And you are the princes and princesses I love most," I replied, savoring their pure joy, a stark contrast to the calculation I'd seen in my own family for so many years. The kids hugged me out of genuine affection, not because they expected anything in return. As afternoon faded, the mansion filled with laughter, music, and lively conversations. Every guest had a story about how Richard and Carla had gradually pushed them out of family gatherings. A cousin who's a nurse said Carla once hinted, "Maybe don't wear scrubs next time," when she dropped by Gabriel's birthday right after a hospital shift. An 80-year-old neighbor who had been like a father to me since Robert died confessed that last year, Richard said it was time for the older generation to make way for new traditions. Each story felt like another knife, but they also steeled my resolve. As the sun set, painting the ocean in shades of rose and gold, Evelyn arrived with a surprise. She brought a professional photographer. "I figured you'd want to capture this special night," Evelyn smiled conspiratorially. "I have a feeling this will be historic." The photographer started clicking away. Laughter by the pool, clinking glasses on the veranda, kids playing beneath the garden lights. Every photo would be proof of the spectacular party Richard and Carla forfeited through arrogance and cruelty. Leonard, my financial advisor, arrived with his wife, who's a doctor. He looked at the 35 guests and teased, "You said you had an interesting family. I didn't expect this many," I replied. "Real family are the people who love you unconditionally, Leonard. And as you can see, in that regard, I'm very rich." As we set the appetizers out on the main veranda, my phone rang non-stop. It was Richard. I let it vibrate. He called back immediately. This time, I put it on speaker so Olivia and Maurice could hear. "Mom, where are you?" "I've been calling all afternoon." His voice was tight. "I'm at home, sweetheart, enjoying a wonderful Christmas with family. At home, I just went to the apartment, and you weren't there. Security said you left early and haven't come back." A wave of satisfaction rose up, so they did go looking. That high society dinner wasn't keeping them that busy. The silence on the line felt heavy as lead. "Wherever you are, come back. Gabriel is waiting for you, he keeps asking for you." There it was, the emotional card. Using my grandson as bait. "Tell Gabriel his grandma loves him dearly, but tonight I'm celebrating with the people who truly value me." I heard Carla arguing in the background, clearly sensing her perfect plan was collapsing. "Mrs. Margaret, this is Carla. I don't know what game you're playing, but it's ridiculous. Come back right now and stop being dramatic." Her voice carried the command of someone used to obedience. "Drama, Carla? This isn't theater, this is real life. And in real life, actions have consequences." "What do you mean?" Richard cut in, his voice held a fear I'd never heard. "I mean, you chose who was worthy of being at the family Christmas. And I've made my choice too." I hung up. Olivia looked at me, both admiring and worried. "This just got serious, sis." "It's time it did, Olivia. For 15 years I've swallowed my pride, endured the humiliation, pretended it didn't hurt when my own family treated me like a second-class citizen. Today that ends." Maurice raised his glass. "A toast to Margaret, who proves it's never too late to reclaim your dignity." Everyone clinked glasses, and for the first time in years, I knew I was exactly where I belonged, surrounded by true love and respect. The night was only beginning. The best part was still ahead. When the party hit its stride, I launched Phase 2. "Iris," I called to the designer, "post all the photos and videos to my social media, Facebook, Instagram, and the family group chat. I want everyone to see a real family Christmas." Iris smiled and opened her laptop to arrange the shots. The frames were stunning. The mansion glowing like a fairy tale palace, a dinner table straight out of Hollywood, guests toasting against the night ocean, each picture radiating elegance, wealth, and above all, genuine happiness. "These are going to blow up," Evelyn said as she reviewed them. "Especially the one of you on the veranda, raising your glass at sunset. You look like a queen in her own castle." She wasn't exaggerating. In the photo, I wore the champagne-colored gown I'd set aside for the occasion, with the heirloom jewelry from my mother-in-law worth more than Richard's car. The first image I posted was a wide shot of the garden-lit mansion, captioned, "Spending Christmas with family, the people who truly love me. Grateful." Comments poured in instantly. Distant cousins, childhood friends, neighbors, all astonished. Maurice leaned in, grinning. "You should check your phone, your notifications are exploding." Sure enough, every minute brought more comments, more hearts, more questions. "Where is this, Margaret? Is this your new home? Looks like a 5-star resort." I posted the second shot. The dining room with everyone gathered around the massive table, the crystal chandelier casting an almost enchanted light, dishes plated like a 5-star restaurant. Caption: "Family reunited, 35 hearts beating as one. That is the real meaning of wealth." Likes and comments surged. When it was time to eat, I glanced at my phone. 17 missed calls from Richard, 9 from Carla, and 20 messages. "Mom, where are you? Whose house is this? How do you have so much money? Carla is crying, she doesn't understand. Please pick up." I turned it off and went back to dinner. Chef Philip had prepared a 7-course menu that outdid anything Carla could imagine. Fresh oysters to start, followed by lobster bisque, where a single serving cost more than the total for the French champagne her parents brought. Maurice's eldest son leaned in to ask, "Auntie, it's hard to believe you live in a small apartment when you have all this. Why?" Many people have asked me the same thing. Because I wanted to know who loved me with their heart, not for the numbers in my bank account. "And now you're sure," I added. Olivia raised her glass. "Here's to your wisdom." Others might have flaunted it from day one. "You had the patience to wait 15 years to see people clearly." Glasses clinked, and eyes shimmered with tears. I posted the strongest photo, me standing on the main veranda, lifting a glass of champagne. Behind me, the mansion blazing with light and the night ocean. I wore the pearl necklace inherited from my mother, the one I'd never brought out because Carla liked to sneer at old-fashioned stuff. Caption: "At 69, I've learned it's never too late to surround yourself only with true love. My home, my family, my happiness." The image spread through the relatives. Within an hour, there were hundreds of comments, shared everywhere. "Margaret, we had no idea you had such a beautiful home. Why didn't you ever invite us? You look like a millionaire lady." Leonard, keeping an eye on the social media strategy, came over. "You're a master of digital revenge." Richard and Carla can't ignore or spin this. "That's exactly the point, Leonard. To show them precisely what they lost because of their arrogance." When I checked my phone again, there were 43 missed calls from Richard, 26 from Carla, and most surprising, several from Gabriel using a friend's phone. Richard's messages slid from confusion to desperation. "Mom, please tell me what's going on. Is that really your house? Carla says it's impossible you have that kind of money. We're very worried." But the most notable lines came from Carla. "Mrs. Margaret, I don't understand why you're doing this. Why didn't you ever say you had money? Richard is very upset." I took Olivia's hand and led her on a tour of the mansion. Each room made her gasp all over again. "How is this even possible? Since when have you had this much money?" We sat on the oceanfront veranda, raising 2 glasses of real champagne, not the imitation Carla was probably pouring at her place. "Do you remember when Robert died 15 years ago?" She nodded. "It turns out my husband was more skillful with money than any of us imagined." I told Olivia everything. The secret investments, the plots of land that once seemed obscure now worth millions, the stocks that multiplied 100-fold. "Why did you never say anything?" she asked, still dazed. "Because I wanted to know who loved me for who I am, not for what I have. And the results say it all." Half an hour later, Maurice arrived with the whole family, his wife, 3 kids, and even his mother-in-law. Their reactions were the same as Olivia's, just multiplied by 6. The kids ranging from 15 to 22 spilled into the garden to take pictures. "Aunt Margaret, this place is like a princess's palace," the youngest daughter said. "And you are the princes and princesses I love most," I replied, savoring their innocent joy, a complete contrast to the calculation I'd seen in my own family. For so many years, they hugged me out of genuine affection, not because they expected anything in return. The afternoon grew more and more lively. Laughter, music, and conversation filled the mansion. Every guest arrived with a story about how Richard and Carla had gradually edged them out of family gatherings. A cousin who's a nurse said Carla once hinted, "Maybe don't wear your scrubs next time," when she'd come straight from a hospital shift to Gabriel's birthday. An 80-year-old neighbor who'd been like a father to me since Robert died confessed that last year Richard said it was time for the older generation to make way for new traditions. Each story was another knife, but they also strengthened my resolve. As sunset washed the ocean in rose gold, Evelyn appeared with a surprise. She brought a professional photographer. "I figured you'd want to capture this special night." Evelyn smiled, mischievous. "I have a feeling this will be historic." The photographer immediately began capturing every moment: laughter by the pool, clinking glasses on the veranda, children playing under the garden lights. Every photo was proof of the spectacular party Richard and Carla forfeited through arrogance and cruelty. Leonard, my financial advisor, arrived with his wife, who's a doctor. He glanced at the 35 guests and joked, "You said you had an interesting family. I didn't expect this many," I answered. "Real family are the ones who love you unconditionally, Leonard. And as you can see, in that regard, I'm very rich." Just as the appetizers were set out on the main veranda, my phone rang incessantly. It was Richard. I let it ring. He called back immediately. This time I put it on speaker for Olivia and Maurice to hear. "Mom, where are you? I've been calling all afternoon." His voice was impatient. "I'm at home, sweetheart, enjoying a wonderful Christmas with family." "At home? I just went to the apartment, and you weren't there. Security said you left early and haven't returned." A swell of satisfaction rose up, so they still had to search. Apparently that high society party wasn't keeping them that busy. The silence on the line was heavy. "Wherever you are, come back. Gabriel is waiting for you. He's been asking all evening." The emotional gambit again, dangling my grandson as bait. "Tell Gabriel I love him dearly, but tonight I'm celebrating with the people who truly value me." I heard Carla's grumbling in the background, a sure sign her perfect plan was crumbling. "Mrs. Margaret, this is Carla. I don't know what game you're playing, but it's ridiculous. Come back now and stop overdoing it." Her tone was imperious, demanding instant submission. "Drama, Carla? This isn't theater, this is real life. And in real life, actions have consequences." "What do you mean?" Richard's voice cut in, and I heard a fear I'd never heard before. "It means you chose who was worthy of being at the family Christmas." "And I've made my choice." I hung up. Olivia looked at me, both admiring and worried. "This is getting serious, sis." "It's time it did, Olivia. For 15 years I've swallowed my pride, endured humiliation, and pretended it didn't hurt when my own family treated me like a second-class citizen. Today, it ends." Maurice raised his glass. "A toast to Margaret, who shows us it's never too late to reclaim your dignity." Everyone clinked glasses, and for the first time in years, I knew I was exactly where I belonged, surrounded by true love and respect. The night was just beginning. The best part was still ahead. I launched Phase 2. "Iris," I called to the designer, "post all the photos and videos to my accounts, Facebook, Instagram, and the family group chat. I want everyone to see what a real family Christmas looks like." Iris smiled, arranging images on her laptop. The frames were dazzling, the mansion glowing like a fairy tale palace, a banquet table straight out of Hollywood, guests raising their glasses against the night ocean, everything radiating elegance, wealth, and above all, genuine happiness. "These are going to blow up," Evelyn said, as she reviewed them. especially the one of you on the veranda at sunset, glass raised. You look like the queen of your own castle." She wasn't exaggerating. In the photo, I wore a champagne-colored gown and the heirloom jewelry from my mother-in-law worth more than Richard's car. The first image I posted was a wide shot of the mansion blazing from the garden, captioned, "Spending Christmas with family, the people who truly love me. Grateful for life." Comments poured in instantly. Distant cousins, childhood friends, neighbors, everyone in awe. Maurice leaned in. "Check your phone, your notifications are exploding." I posted another shot of the dining room, everyone gathered around the enormous table, a crystal chandelier weaving a magical light. Dishes as beautiful as a five-star restaurant. Caption: "Family reunited, 35 hearts beating as one. That is true wealth." When dessert arrived, chocolate mousse made by the French chef, heaven itself. I posted a video Iris filmed during dinner. A table buzzing with laughter, hugs, toasts, happiness overflowing. Christmas with family, 35 people choosing to be with me on this magical night. Boundless gratitude. The video rippled through the relatives. I could imagine Richard and Carla watching every second, finally realizing what a grand thing they'd thrown away. At exactly midnight, as everyone stood on the veranda watching the fireworks I'd hired to close the night, Gabriel reached me on his best friend's phone. "Grandma, why aren't you here? I miss you so much." The boy's voice made my heart clench. "I miss you too, sweetheart, but sometimes adults make decisions that have consequences. Your parents decided I wasn't elegant enough for their special dinner, but I want to be with you. My mom's been crying all night and Dad is really angry. My darling, one day you'll understand. The people who truly love you will never make you feel like you're not enough." From a distance, I heard Carla snap, "Give me that phone right now." Before the call ended, Iris rushed over with her laptop. "Margaret, you have to see this. Your photos have over 500 views in just a few hours. Everyone's asking about the mansion, about you, about this transformation." Notifications kept rolling, and each one a small victory. Maurice sat beside me, watching the last sparks of fireworks fade. "Think Richard and Carla have learned their lesson?" "They've only seen the tip of the iceberg, Maurice. Tomorrow they'll learn who I really am, and it'll be even more shocking." Olivia hugged me. "This is the best Christmas of my life, but I'm curious what happens tomorrow." "Tomorrow, they'll come here. And when they step inside, they'll get the most important lesson of their lives." As the final flare dissolved in the sky, I knew I'd achieved more than payback. I had reclaimed my dignity, gathered the relatives who truly belonged to me, and proved that respect isn't something to beg for, it's something to build and demand. The night was perfect, but the main event was still ahead. On the morning of December 26th, I woke in the mansion's primary bedroom. On the king bed facing the ocean, for the first time in years, I felt complete peace. Olivia was in a guest room. I met her on the veranda as she sipped freshly ground coffee, eyes following the waves. "Good morning, miss." "Millionaire," she teased. "How does it feel to be the most powerful woman in the family?" "Like justice, Olivia. Pure justice." We had breakfast croissants, fresh tropical fruit, eggs, Benedict as pretty as a work of art. My phone rang again, a strange number. "Hello, Mrs. Margaret. I'm Gabriel's best friend's mother." "Sorry to call so early, but Richard and Carla rushed over first thing, asking if we knew where you were." "How interesting. They were desperate enough to bother other parents." "What did you tell them?" "Well, we saw your photos last night on Facebook. The house is stunning, parents at school are buzzing. But they looked frantic, said they needed to see you urgently. Tell them I'm perfectly fine, and when I want to meet, I'll reach out." Over the next half hour, 5 more calls like that. An old neighbor, a distant relative, even Gabriel's dentist. Richard and Carla were mobilizing the whole world to find me. I opened my phone to check the scale of the storm. Dozens of missed calls, hundreds of messages shifting from confusion to panic. "Mom, I don't understand anything anymore. How do you have a mansion? Why did you never tell us you're wealthy?" "Carla's in shock, hasn't slept all night. Please talk to us." Carla's texts showed her true colors. "Maybe I was a bit blunt. You know me. Why did you have to put on a show instead of just saying the truth?" Then sliding into alarm. Parents from school keep calling. Where are you? I posted one last photo. I'm in a silk robe, drinking coffee on the main veranda, the blue ocean behind me caption, waking up in paradise. When you remove toxic people from your life, what remains is only peace and happiness. Comments flooded in. Richard reacted with the shocked emoji. Carla wrote, Mrs. Margaret, please call us. We're really worried. I didn't respond. Early in the afternoon, a BMW screeched to a halt at the gate. Richard and Carla got out both bedraggled. Richard was still in yesterday's clothes. Carla's mascara was smudged, hair a mess something I'd never seen. They stood there a long time, pointing at each detail, the glowing marble fountain, the immaculate garden, the colonnade at the entry, the ocean view. Their mouths hung open in disbelief. Finally, Richard rang the bell. Through the intercom, his voice trembled. Mom, I know you're in there. Please, we need to talk. I didn't answer right away. I let them wait exactly 5 minutes, just enough time to finish my lunchtime glass of champagne. Who is it? I asked, as if I didn't know. Mom, it's Richard. I'm here with Carla. Please open the door. His voice carried a desperation I'd never heard. Richard, what are you doing here? Aren't you busy enjoying that refined European dinner? A suffocating silence. Mom, please, we need an explanation. None of this makes sense. An explanation for what, dear? The house, the money, or why I hid things from you? Have you been lying to us this whole time? I never lied. I simply didn't tell you everything. There's a difference, I heard Carla mutter behind him. Could you open the gate so we can talk like adults? Fine. But first, answer me this. Did you come today because you truly wanted to see me, or because the photos made me suddenly interesting? The question hung in the air like a blade. That's not it, Mom. We're just overwhelmed. Why did you never say you had so much money? Because I wanted to know you loved me for who I am, Richard, not for what I own. And now I have all the answers I need. I buzzed the gate open. They walked slowly up the stone path, each step heavy with surprise and dawning understanding. Before them stood not a poor dependent grandma, but a strong woman on her own ground. When they reached the front door, I opened it myself, wearing an elegant red dress and my mother-in-law's pearl necklace. The looks on their faces were exactly what I'd waited 15 years to see: shock, confusion, and for the first time in a very long time, a hint of unintentional respect. Hello, Richard. Hello, Carla. Welcome to my home. My voice was calm, controlled, authoritative. Come in. We have a lot to discuss. They entered as if touring a museum, eyes drifting from the crystal chandelier in the foyer to the original paintings on the walls, from the marble floors to the designer furnishings. It was as if they were seeing a ghost, but that ghost was me. I gestured to the Italian leather sofa in the main living room. Sit. They obeyed without a word, something I hadn't seen in many years. Normally, Carla would toss off some condescending remark about the decor, and Richard would try to steer the conversation. Now they were completely lost. Can you explain what's going on? Richard finally found his voice again, but it was small and unsure. Is this house really yours? Of course it's mine, sweetheart. I bought it a week ago, paid in full. The words, paid in full, drained the color from their faces. Carla, who'd been staring out at the ocean, snapped back around, wearing the calculating look I knew too well. Mrs. Margaret, I don't understand where you got that kind of money. Did you win the lottery and not tell us? I let out a soft laugh, an even more destabilizing sound for them. The lottery, Carla? No, dear. This is bigger than winning the lottery. This is planning, smart investing, and patience. I walked toward the glass doors, savoring the feeling of complete control over the moment. When Robert died 15 years ago, you assumed I'd fallen into hardship. I still remember the pitying looks you gave me at the funeral, whispering that poor Mrs. Margaret would have to sell the house and live on a tiny pension. Richard lowered his head, clearly remembering those conversations. Here's what no one knew. Robert was a genius investor. For 20 years he quietly bought shares of tech companies that seemed obscure, but that he believed would explode. He also bought land in places everyone mocked, which are now projects worth many millions of dollars. Carla parted her lips to cut in, but I stopped her with a look. I'm not finished, Carla. Robert left me not only love, but an initial nest egg of about $5 million, quietly growing over the years. Now, it has surpassed $80 million. The room went silent. Richard looked like he'd just taken a punch. 80 million, he muttered. And you lived all those years in a small apartment, using coupons, sometimes borrowing money from me? Exactly, son. For 15 years I played the poor widow to watch closely, who loved me for who I am, and who merely tolerated me out of obligation. I sat down across from them, crossing my legs with the poise I'd deliberately hidden. But why? Carla looked genuinely bewildered. Why pretend to be poor when you're that rich? Because I wanted to see the true hearts of the people around me, Carla. And the results are crystal clear. Richard leaned forward, his hands trembling. Mom, if we had known, what would we have done differently? Richard, you could have treated me with respect. Carla could have stopped mocking my clothes and my food. You could have included me in every plan instead of shutting me out. Carla flushed. Mrs. Margaret, I never… Well, maybe I was a bit blunt at times. A bit blunt? I stood again, feeling the power I'd kept buried rise up. Carla, for 5 years, you treated me like a burden. You made me feel unnecessary at every party. Last year, you said the gift I bought Gabriel was cheap and unsuitable. 6 months ago, you hinted I shouldn't attend his school performance because the other grandmas dress better. Last month, you told me not to bring the dish. I love to family dinner. It doesn't fit your refined menu. Each word was a bullet, and I watched them pierce. Richard hurried to defend his wife. Mom, Carla wasn't trying to be cruel. She just has high standards. High standards? I arched a brow. You mean when your wife told me I should wash my hands more thoroughly because some older people don't realize they're not completely clean? The shock on Richard's face told me Carla had never mentioned that. Carla said that to you? His voice cracked, tinged with danger. Oh, there's plenty more your perfect daughter-in-law has said when you weren't around, son. Carla shot to her feet. You're exaggerating. Maybe I was careless sometimes, but I never… careless. I cut in, my voice unfamiliar even to me. 2 days ago, you told me I wasn't refined enough to dine with your parents. You mocked my coupons as inappropriate and suggested I spend Christmas alone in front of the TV. Richard whipped toward his wife with a look I'd never seen. You said that to my mother? My parents have certain expectations, Carla stammered for the first time since I'd known her. Expectations about what, Carla? About his own mother? Richard's voice rose. For the first time in years, my son was on my side, but it was too late. Richard, I said evenly, don't get angry with Carla. She only revealed her true nature just like you did when you called to exclude me from Christmas without even asking how I felt. Mom, I thought you would understand. Carla said it would be better. Carla thought. Carla wanted. And how did I feel, Richard? When was the last time you truly cared about my opinion? I walked to the window and pointed down to the beach. See that veranda? Last night, 35 people had dinner with me. 35 people who love me enough to choose to be with me on Christmas, people who would never make me feel not enough. Olivia flew in from 3 states away. Maurice canceled his plans to bring his whole family. Neighbors, cousins, even people I hadn't seen in years if I invited them, they came. Carla began to cry, not the tears of a victim, but of someone who has realized the consequences of her actions. Mrs. Margaret, I'm truly sorry. If you had told us earlier, but you didn't speak, Carla, and that is exactly why I kept quiet. I wanted to see how you would treat me when you thought I had nothing to offer. Richard stood and walked toward me. Mom, I know you're angry, we deserve it, but we're family. We can fix this. Maybe, Richard, but the night you called to cut me out of Christmas, where was that family first you like to preach? That was a terrible mistake, Mom. Carla convinced me, but I should have thought for myself. He finally took responsibility, but the wound was too deep. Richard, for 15 years I waited for someone to stand up for me. I waited for my own son to value me enough not to let me be humiliated right in front of him. That never happened. My voice wavered the first time I let the depth of the pain show. Now you're here. Not because you suddenly understand I deserve respect, but because you learned I have money. You don't see the difference? The question hung like a verdict. Carla stepped closer, eyes red. You're right. I was awful to you. There's no excuse. But Gabriel needs you. He doesn't understand why his grandma disappeared. The final play using my grandson as an emotional shield. Gabriel needs me, Carla, but he also needs to grow up in a family that teaches respect and real values. Clearly, you both have a lot of work to do. I tilted my head toward the door, closing the conversation. That's enough for today. When you're ready to apologize sincerely, not to cry because you've just realized you mistreated someone with power, you know where to find me. I left them standing there, stunned by the wreckage of their arrogance. The days that followed were an emotional roller coaster. Richard and Carla didn't give up after the conversation at the mansion. On the contrary, they tried harder, which surprised me. On the second day, Richard showed up alone, without Carla, wearing an expression I hadn't seen in a long time, true humility. "Mom, I know I have no right to ask for anything after how we treated you," he began as I cracked the door, "but I need you to know I didn't sleep last night." I lay there replaying every moment I failed as a son. His eyes were red. For the first time in years, he looked vulnerable. "Come in, Richard, but this time you enter my home on my terms." I led him to the veranda where I'd just finished breakfast. "Coffee?" I poured into a china cup, noticing his eyes snag on each luxurious detail, the things he'd seen me use for so long, without knowing their origin. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I hope you'll answer completely honestly." He sat on the edge of his seat like a man at a job interview. "In all those years, was there ever a time you felt I truly valued you, not out of obligation, but because you're my mother?" The question surprised me with its bluntness. "Richard, there were beautiful moments, when you were born, when you were little, when you truly needed me. But in recent years," I paused, searching for words. "In recent years I felt you tolerated me more than you appreciated me." Exactly what I was afraid you'd say. He buried his face in his hands. "Mom, I've become someone I don't even recognize. I let Carla make the family decisions, even the ones involving you, without defending your place in our lives. That's hard to forgive." "And what about Carla?" I asked, wanting to know how she was reacting. "Carla is trying to process it. She's been crying since yesterday, saying she's the worst person alive. But honestly, Mom, I don't know whether those tears are because she hurt you or because she thinks she missed out on the chance to benefit from your wealth." His candor stopped me short. "And what about you, Richard? Why are you here because of genuine guilt, or because you realized I'm not the financial burden you thought I was?" "Both," he answered immediately. "I hate to admit it, but it's the truth. I'm here because my heart hurts, realizing I was blind and cruel to you. But also because I'm afraid I've lost forever the one person who has always loved me unconditionally. At least you're honest." I leaned back, watching the waves thrash the private shore. "Richard, for 15 years, I waited for you to realize you were losing me, but only when you saw a mansion and a fortune did you admit you were wrong. You're right. That makes me the worst kind of son." His voice grew hoarse. "Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. Maybe it's too late to fix what we did. But I need you to know, I regret every moment I made you feel small. And what about Gabriel, Richard? How do you explain this to an 8-year-old? That's the hardest part. He doesn't understand why his grandma suddenly disappeared. He asks about you every day. Yesterday he said, 'Dad, why doesn't Grandma want to see us anymore?' Tears spilled down my cheeks. The child isn't at fault for his parents' mistakes," I said softly, my heart twisting. "I know, Mom. I'm trying to explain it in a way he can understand." I told him sometimes adults make very big mistakes and have to work a long time to fix them. Right then, my phone rang. It was Olivia. "Are you okay? I see Richard is there." "I'm fine. Richard and I are having a necessary conversation." "Good. I wanted to tell you. Maurice just called. The whole family knows now, and everyone is on your side. Just so you're aware." Hanging up, I caught Richard's questioning look. "The whole family knows?" "Richard, what you don't understand is that all these years, the relatives have seen how Carla treated me. Everyone's heard her condescending remarks. Everyone noticed how you two gradually cut me out of family life. This revelation isn't just about money, it's about justice. Maurice told me about the time Carla told him to wash his hands clean before touching anything. Olivia reminded me of when she forgot to invite her to a party. Your cousin said Carla once told her not to bring the little ones because they were too noisy. Richard's face went pale with each example. I didn't know. Carla never told me because she knew she was wrong. Exactly. But she still did it, because she believed her influence over you was stronger than your loyalty to your family. Mom, is there any way you could forgive us? Any way we can earn back your trust? Richard, forgiveness doesn't come right after an apology. It's built with consistent actions over time. What do we need to do? His voice was desperate but sincere. First, understand this isn't just my new house. It embodies who I truly am, the woman I have always been. You just never bothered to find out. Second, accept that Gabriel deserves to grow up with his real grandma, not the version you prefer. He needs to know he can dream big, reach for the extraordinary, and never let anyone make him feel small. Third, I stepped out to the veranda railing. Commit to treating everyone with respect and dignity, no matter how much money they have. Because true elegance isn't bought in European stores, Richard. It lies in how you treat people you think can't give you anything in return. Richard stepped beside me. Mom, I know we have a lot to do. It may take years to earn back your trust, but I'm ready to do whatever it takes. As for Carla, she has to decide for herself what kind of person she wants to be. But I promise I'll never let anyone, not even my wife, disrespect you again. One more thing you need to know, Richard. I turned back, smiling the smile I hadn't shown anyone in years. This mansion isn't just mine. I'll leave half of it to Gabriel in my will. But he only receives it if he grows into a man who treats everyone with kindness and respect. You're leaving him millions of dollars? Yes. But more importantly, I'm leaving him a lesson. A person's true worth isn't measured by what they own, but by how they treat others, especially the people they love. Richard broke down. After everything we did, you're still thinking about Gabriel's future? I always think about him, son. The difference is that now I have the resources to make sure he becomes exceptional. Could we bring Gabriel to visit you? He misses you so much. Yes, but on one condition. When he comes here, he'll meet the real grandma, a businesswoman, a philanthropist, a property owner. I don't want him growing up thinking older people are a burden or that money determines a person's value. Yes, Mom. Whatever you say. Richard hugged me for the first time in years. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of the little boy I once raised with all my love. There's still hope for us, son. But that hope requires real actions, not pretty words. That afternoon, after Richard left, I sat on the veranda, watched the sunset, and thought about everything. I'd achieved more than payback. I reclaimed my dignity, I taught the important lessons, and I opened the door to a reconciliation if it happens built on mutual respect. Most importantly, I proved it's never too late to protect yourself, demand the treatment you deserve, and remind the world who you are. 3 months after the Christmas that changed everything, I sat in the mansion's office reviewing plans for a charity fund I'd decided to establish. The ocean view from the mahogany desk reminded me every day. Life can change completely when you dare to stand up and reveal your true worth. Gabriel has visited me every weekend since January. The first time after the revelation, that's what the family calls it, the boy's mouth hung open for 10 straight minutes as he toured the mansion. Grandma, is all of this really yours? His eyes were wide. Yes, sweetheart. And one day, if you become the kind, generous man I believe you will, a part of this will be yours. I also explained in terms he could grasp. Money is a tool to do good, not to show off or humiliate others. Gabriel, with a child's innate wisdom, understood immediately. Why didn't you tell me sooner, Grandma? He asked one Saturday morning as we built a sandcastle on the private beach. Because I needed to know who loved me with their heart, Gabriel, and now I know for sure. Over those 3 months, Richard kept his word. He worked to repair things not with expensive gifts or showy gestures, but with the small things I hadn't seen in so long. calling me every day not to ask for anything, just to see how my day was, visiting alone, without Carla, to talk honestly about life, about mistakes, and about his plan to become a better man. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot," he said on a Tuesday afternoon. "I realized that for years, I stopped seeing you as a person only as my mother, as if that's all you are. That's a common mistake, son. People forget their parents had a life before they became parents, and they still have dreams, ambitions, and a personality. We sat in the library filled with books I'd collected for years, but never had space to display. I want to get to know that person, Mom. I want to know Margaret the entrepreneur, Margaret the investor, the woman who built all this and still humbly shopped with coupons." His smile this time was real, not the forced kind I endured for years. The story with Carla was different. In the first weeks, she tried to move closer with a mix of rushed apologies and lines that still revealed she hadn't fully grasped the extent of her wrongdoing. "Mrs. Margaret, I know I was hard on you, but I didn't expect you to hold a grudge like this," she said in a maddening call. "Carla," I answered with the patience I'd honed through years of meditating on the veranda. "The issue isn't that I held a grudge. The issue is that for 5 years you tried to make me invisible in my own family." But then, something seemed to start changing in her. Maybe because she saw Richard truly changing, or because she realized she'd chosen the wrong side of the story. Carla began sending kinder messages, recalling moments when we'd gotten along, apologizing for remarks she finally called by their true name, cruel. On her first visit to the mansion in February, she confessed, "Mrs. Margaret, I'm in therapy. My therapist is helping me understand that my behavior comes from my own insecurities." For the first time, I saw her truly vulnerable. "The problem, Carla, is that you tried to feel better by making me feel worse. That will never be a solution." I poured tea into the china cups, noticing her eyes linger on each detail, mixed with admiration and remorse. "I get it now. And I know it may take years to earn your forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm committed to changing not just for you, but for Gabriel. I don't want my son to grow up thinking mistreating others is normal." The most beautiful transformation came from Gabriel. Over time, he began to grasp the deepest lesson in all of this. "Grandma," he said one afternoon as we strolled through the garden, "now I understand why you always tell me to be kind to everyone at school, even the kids who don't have the cool toys. Why is that, sweetheart? Because we never know who's truly special on the inside. Like you look like an ordinary grandma, but you've actually been a superhero all along." The logic of an 8-year-old? Perfect. Exactly, Gabriel. And more importantly, everyone deserves kindness, money or no money, power or no power. That is the mark of a truly elegant person. My story spread beyond the family. Evelyn shared my experience in women entrepreneur groups, and I received dozens of messages from older women who'd gone through the same thing, being underestimated, dismissed by their own relatives. One letter touched my heart, from a 74-year-old woman in the Midwest, United States. "Dear Mrs. Margaret, your story gave me the courage to finally tell my family about the company I started 20 years ago. For 2 decades, I pretended to be a boring retiree while building a 6-figure business. Your courage helped me reclaim myself. With Leonard's support, I founded the Dignity and Respect Fund, focused on helping older people who've been sidelined or belittled by their families. The first project is a program to reconnect grandparents with grandchildren, kids kept apart by toxic parents." "Do you know what's best about all this, Mom?" Richard asked at last month's family dinner at the mansion, the first with Richard, Carla, and Gabriel, and everything complete. "What is it, son? You didn't just teach a lesson about respect. You taught that it's never too late to change your life, to protect yourself, and to demand the treatment you deserve." Carla nodded, eyes brimming. "Even better," I said, looking at Gabriel stacking blocks in the living room. "We're teaching Gabriel that real power doesn't come from money, but from integrity, kindness, and the block. Determination never to let anyone make you feel small." That night, after they left, I stepped onto the veranda and watched stars mirrored in the infinity pool. I thought about the road since the call that changed my life. A story that began in exclusion and humiliation, becoming a journey of standing up and being redeemed. What I learned is that true revenge isn't hurting those who hurt you, but living so well, so rightly, so vibrantly that their behavior becomes the greatest shame to themselves. I didn't need to destroy Richard and Carla. The fact that they understood what they'd lost was the heaviest consequence. I reclaimed not only my dignity, but my identity. I am no longer the poor grandma or the dependent widow. I am Margaret, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a woman who quietly built an empire and used that strength to teach the most important lessons about respect and humanity. As the waves lapped my private shore, I smiled, thinking of those who'd been inspired. If my experience can give even one grandmother the courage to stand up and reclaim her dignity, or lead one family to treat their elders better, then every minute I was underestimated was worth it. At 70, I've learned it's never too late to rewrite your life, to show the world who you are, and to make sure the people you love learn the values that truly matter. And that more than any mansion or fortune is the greatest legacy I can leave. Life taught me, respect isn't something to beg for, but to build and demand. And sometimes, the most powerful lesson you can give is to live so radiantly that your very existence becomes proof of how badly they misjudged you. That night, I slept deeply on the king bed, lulled by the ocean, knowing I'd achieved something rare, a second chance to be myself fully, amid the love and respect I always deserved. What do you think of my story, and what city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you enjoyed it, you can support me with a super thanks, so I can keep bringing more stories. Thank you in advance for being here. I'm waiting for your thoughts on this story. In the video, there are 2 new life stories I'm very proud of. Please keep watching. There's much more on the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next story with all my appreciation. And so Margaret's journey ended not with a loud victory, but with the calm of a heart that has reclaimed its dignity. That story reminds us, family isn't measured by banquet spreads or sparkling crystal, but by how we treat each other when no one is watching. Love isn't a privilege, but a responsibility to nurture and protect. And sometimes, the greatest lesson for adults comes from the clear eyes of a child. I believe the most lasting power doesn't lie in money, but in consistent kindness, the kind that turns a house into a home, and differences into chances to understand and heal. If you've ever been belittled in your own home, I hope this story gives you a breath to stand up, say what needs to be said, and reset your boundaries with love. Now it's your turn. Which moment in the story moved you most? A line, a hug, or a brave decision? In your family, how is respect being taught and protected? Share in the comments so we can listen, learn, and grow together. If these moments meant something to you, stay with us so you don't miss the next stories where each of us can reflect and bring a little warmth back to those we love.